Welcome back to the channel. Well, as promised, we're doing the next step of some of our updates, which is, let's spin. Where are we at? L&M Engines. So today, let's see if we can keep ourselves in frame. Today we're going to be assembling our short block into a long block, and we're going to have them walk us through the process. And then from there, we're taking this motor back down to Rob's, well, up to Rob's Performance, because we're down in Philly area. Take it up to Rob's Performance so we can get this motor put in the truck and some power. Well. What we have here is our beautiful block. First of all, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to Manly Performance Products for supplying the pistons, rings, and rods. And another great shout out to L&M Engines for allowing us to be in here with the cameras as they prepare to convert the short block to a long block, because I know I'm kind of in their way while they're filming, while they're trying to work and delaying them. But as you can see, this block is sleeved. Yes. Time for some big power. And another little note, these little pinholes right here are capped off. I didn't realize, but when the sleeving process happens, it kind of opens up a little channel that's in there, so they cap them off so that you don't have fluid kind of escaping and leading to some other issues. But here we are. This is our block. One of the things I do want to bring up is this is our original block that came in the truck when I bought the truck. This is the block that was there when the oil pump gears went. So I had saved that block. That's why when you look in the valley, you see that it's a little used. Here we have the crank. The crank has been double keyed. I'll get underneath there so you can see. Let's get there. There we go. You can see the other side. So it's a double keyed crank, and we're pretty much ready for some real big power. So from here, we'll kind of jump in with the crew from L&M as they start to assemble. They'll be answering a few questions that we have about everything as we go. Hope you enjoy the video. Michael and Chris from L&M. These guys are the lucky guys that are going to be putting my motor together. They already assembled the short block, and today we're going to be turning it into, converting it to a long block. We had a couple questions, Michael. Since this is a Gen 3 Coyote, what are the major differences between a Gen 1, Gen 2, and a Gen 3?
Major difference on Gen 3 is the deck, or the core, we would call cylinder core. And you can see on Gen 3 here, we have a strut here, open coolant here, strut here on the exhaust, two of them, and then open coolant around the bolt hole. On the Gen 1, Gen 2, we have all this enclosed on the deck surface. It's open in this area, here to here, and essentially it's similar to this, but it's closed over here, Gen 1, Gen 2. What they're trying to accomplish here, besides saving weight, casting material, is the highest pressure weight on the core valve is always towards the intake side, and medium pressure is in this general area right here. Gen 1 and Gen 2, to form the cylinder, because that pressure wave is open right in here, to form the cylinder, you lose the ring seal, you burn the piston, etc., etc. It's like the mysterious Coyote number 8 cylinder knock. It's pretty prevalent on 5 through 8. So they went and they added the strut here, opened this up to save money, and changed the coolant path a little bit. Instead of in a big hole in the middle, it's here and here. So that's the big difference between Gen 3 and Gen 1 and 2.
All right.
Gen 1 and 2 are almost identical, except for the oil filter adapter pad. And this is a Gen 2 style right here. Gen 1 doesn't have this hole. Gen 1 and 2 will feed dirty oil, clean oil. Dirty oil out, filter, clean oil back into the engine. This hole that's on Gen 2 and Gen 3, there's a bypass, filter, actually oil pressure bypass. In some cases on this model it's computer controlled, and it'll bypass at a certain oil pressure back into the crankcase. That's the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2. Minor differences, but there's all the major differences. Now, because they thought they fixed something here by adding the strut in the middle, it takes care of probably 90% of the cylinder deformation problems we see in earlier models, but it's still open over here, and we've seen engines, the cylinder push out, deform, ring leak, gasket failure, because this is active up here, moving, vibrating. The cylinders vibrate like mad in any engine, and this would do well if we enclosed over here, but there's an issue with the coolant path. Enclosed means tie this outside structure to this and make it more of a box, or make it more rigid.
Gotcha. All right. So I guess the next thing is on to you, Chris.
Bolt the cylinder head on now.
So what type of gaskets are we using here?
We're using a 5-layer kinetic head gasket.
Okay. And how does that vary from, say, the stock gasket?
The stock gasket has a film over it that creates thickness, and with the kinetic head gasket, it does not have that film. It's all one piece, one layer, one thickness, no leaks.
Okay. All right. Now, interestingly enough, I've actually seen this done a couple different ways now. Right. This would make the second. First way, I usually see the head stud. Those are studs, right, or bolts?
Correct. These are head studs.
And the stock ones are the head bolts.
Head bolts, yes.
Okay, so I usually see the head studs installed first, then gasket over top, and then the head laid in. Is there a right way, wrong way, or just a preferred way?
Preferred way. I install the head studs last, so I'm not wrestling the head down over the head studs. They are a long stud. If it wasn't such a long stud, then I could put the studs in first.
Okay.
Get the head down.
Now, what's the main difference going from head bolts to head studs?
Going from head bolts to head studs is the clamping force. You have a stronger clamping force with the ARP 2000 head stud versus a factory head bolt.
Okay. And that will prevent the head from lifting?
Correct.
Or reduce the chance of the head lifting?
Reduce the chance of the head.
Nothing in this world is 100%, but figure 23, 24 pounds of boost. We're better off going studs. So Chris, one of the other things that a lot of people are very hesitant on is spending the money to get their blocks sleeved. I myself one of those people. But, all right, so the Gen 3, I know doesn't come with an actual sleeve. It's
Plasma bore liner.
It's a plasma bore liner.
Yes.
So, for us that don't know, what exactly does that mean?
You don't actually have a iron cylinder wall in there. You have a sprayed in liner that's only about 6/1000 thick. That's about the thickness of a piece of paper. So think about your cylinder wall is about the thickness of a piece of paper with that. Putting the sleeves in strengthens your cylinder and also puts better clamping force on it because you have this flange up at the top. Stronger clamping force helps with the distortion of the cylinder like we mentioned earlier. Sleeve's the way to go if you want to make big power. You want to put a lot of boost to it.
Alright.
I think I have a block over here if you want to see it. The plasma board.
Can't even see anything. It really doesn't look like anything's in there. This is what, a Gen 2?
No, it's a 2020 GT500.
Oh.
This is a Gen 2. So.
Okay, so the Gen 2 did have the sleeve.
Correct.
Just a very thin one.
Yes, now if you look at the Gen 2 block, you can see here that you have an iron sleeve and then your aluminum deck surface. If you come over here to this block, you have no iron sleeve. You can see it's just a sprayed in liner. You have a little bit more strength with the Gen 2, but still, it's smart to put a sleeve in anything if you're going to be making big power and a lot of boost.
Gotcha. Amidst the many questions that I have that are delaying you, I've seen some engines built before, and one of the things I saw some guys do on different motors was with the head gasket, they would spray like a copper on it.
Spraying the copper coat, yes. Copper coat will help with any little imperfection that you have in the deck surface finish. We know that ours are nice and flat. We check them with the profilometer, make sure that it's exactly what we want, and we see no need to put copper coat on our head gaskets.
Gotcha. All right, Michael.
Yes.
So one of the other lovely upgrades that a lot of people do is the springs. So for my build, which we know is going to be about 20 plus pounds of boost, I gotta love that. How much, not how much, but what would be the reasoning between going for an aftermarket spring that has a higher rate versus the stock spring?
There's a couple of reasons, but just addressing boost in itself, okay? If you think about it, say you had 20 psi of boost in the intake port, as the valve starts to close, just before it's ready to close, you just about have 20 pounds per square inch on the back side of the valve counteracting the spring. So that little area, and when it closes, we have 20 psi of pressure against the valve. That's pounds per square inch. But if you look at the valve, it's about 2 square inches of valve. So we have 40 psi of force counteracting the spring. So in a stock setup, you have maybe 60 pounds of force on the spring, and with 20 pounds of boost on a 2-inch square inch valve, we now have a net force of only 20 pounds on the valve overcoming gravity, okay? So the valve won't seat correctly. It has a propensity to delay this closing, which is critical. It should close immediately. Whatever the camshaft asks for, it should close. And all that is detrimental to power. We'll also see many cars all of a sudden climb up on a dyno, and then it's about 6,000, 7,000 RPM or 8,000, somewhere higher RPM range. You see the torque sit there and start to shuttle, or it flattens out, or it falls off. That means the valve not closing. We're closing really late. okay? Turbos have another issue, which is similar, same thing on the exhaust side. You have real high turbine inlet pressures, which is the exhaust pressure. You get the same phenomenon going on the exhaust side. So that's why we go with bigger, higher unit pressure spring.
All right. That's what we're here to do. Find answers for why cheap guys like me can't be cheap.
Well, with an expensive engine, the whole word cheap shouldn't even come into the equation here, okay? Because a lot of times it's the pound-wise, penny-foolish, right?
Very true.
Especially guys that complain about the price of race gasoline. And they should be running race gasoline. And now the petroleum engineers doing to mix them up with the regular, pump fuel and octane booster. Now they're a petroleum engineer without a degree. So they pay the price.
Gotcha. Thank you, Michael.
All right.
So we have Brandon here from L&M, one of the other techs. Now, what exactly are you doing now?
I'm going through and qualifying and checking all the bolts, make sure it's torqued properly. So the process is basically first I go through, put together, I'll go through behind them, and check to make sure everything's not properly working.
All right, so we wind up with two different techs doing it just as a precautionary double check. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, Chris will go through, he'll basically torque everything. He's got a yellow paint marker. I go through, I double check it, I'll put my paint marker on. That way anybody walks away from it, we can come back and we can see who checked what.
Okay. So you're the blue guy, he's the yellow guy.
Yep, I'm blue, he's yellow.
All right. And that's the way, one of the many ways you guys do quality control.
Correct.
All right. So what exactly are we doing right now?
Right now we are measuring the rotational torque of the short block. We're going to we note everything with our engine builds, from piston to wall clearance, all the spring information that you need, deck height of the piston, the thickness of the head gasket, so that if there's ever a problem when a customer calls, we can refer back to our information and say, hey, check for this, look at this. We check rotating torque of the short block so that if somebody has a major engine problem, we can say, hey, take your timing chains off, loosen your cams up so you're not going to hit anything, rotate your engine around and see what it's like. Again, that brings it very bad problem. Would we take it down to taking your chains off? Once we get everything timed and the timing chains on, we'll check rotational torque of the whole long block. That way, again, a customer can go and rotate their short block or their long block around, and we can see a problem potentially then with that.
All right, so you basically get a baseline of every possible spec of this engine before it leaves.
Every spec any spec of this engine. If you need it, we got it for you.
Good to know. Well, in the process of trying to get our stuff all finished, we got one of those surprise guests. Trying to keep an eye on the competition. I spot a spy.
I was here my car. What's that?
He knows Mama's in trouble. That's what this comes down to. As well as the Hawk.
Good?
He knows. So, we're buttoning up. And as you guys may see in the video, we didn't add gaskets. That's primarily because we're going to be taking those covers right back off when we get to our location. Right now, we're just putting it on there for protection so that we don't get anything flying in our engine during transport. Before you put that on.
Yep.
All right, so we're looking at the bottom here, which is the rest of the meat and potatoes. So this is Now, when guys say that they're upgrading like their main caps and everything, can you kind of break down what's going on there? Because it's like when you see an engine build
Right.
parts list, it's like certain parts you know, that the layman knows, pistons, rods. That's kind of where it ends.
So for a little bit more protection to make the bottom end more bulletproof, we put a ARP main stud in. We recommend that any engine you build, we put an ARP 2000 rod bolt in. That is a much stronger bolt than the 8740s that these rods originally come with. We don't typically recommend a billet main cap. There's no reason for it. Other than that, it's a pretty bulletproof bottom end with a stock crankshaft in it. If you want to go extreme, then you can go and put something aftermarket like a Windberg or a Bryant.
Okay. And when they balance a rotating assembly, that's what, adding weight to the crank?
Adding or subtracting weight depending on how much your piston and rod combination weighs. In this case, we had to add weight. You can see right here, that's a slug of heavy metal. Heavy metal is tungsten. So we had to add that in to put more weight into the crankshaft so that you have no vibration at different RPM ranges.
Oh, okay. And tell us why vibration is bad.
Vibration shakes parts apart. You do not want to have an engine that vibrates. You'll feel it sitting in the driver's seat, and it's not a good thing. Vibrating is not a good thing.
All right. Oh baby, she's ready for liftoff. She's ready to come on home. We have been stamped. Well, we're locked, we're loaded, heading back to Jersey. It's time to put the Undertaker back together. Until next time, Boost to that 150 out.